So a couple of weeks ago, I reached out and asked people to send me their own first-hand accounts of how they've been affected by the quarantine. Some of the videos and messages I received were quite optimistic and positive, others were fairly neutral, and other ones were actually quite sad. And so, to be honest, we have a bit of a mixed bag. While the stretch goal of this project was, and indeed remains, to get an accurate first-hand representation of each of the 16 types, at this stage in the project that I very much hope will continue, and may even be picked up by other channels within this community, certain types like the ESFP, ESFJ, ESTJ remain fairly elusive. But as it stands, I'm extremely happy and grateful for all of the messages and videos I've received so far. It's honestly been absolutely great to hear from you. And I really started this project not only to produce a kind of accurate account of how every type's being affected, but more than that, I began this project for people to reach out to each other. And through this video, and perhaps future videos in this series, remind all of us that we are not alone in this situation. And so yeah, I want this project to continue. I want this project to be centered around more than just this particular channel. So this video is going to be divided into two sections. The first section will be completely dedicated to the videos I've received. I'm not going to be responding to them, I'm not going to be commenting on them, and I'm certainly not going to be analysing them. Rather, I'm just going to give people a space in which to share their messages unhindered.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm a college student in the United States, and I am definitely staying at home. It's pretty isolating, but I enjoy it. It's kind of like public validation of my regular routine, as I'm an INTP and very introverted. I have been talking even less to friends, which, although may not be developing my FE, like you've suggested in a recent video, has opened up new avenues, in that I think for a long time my belief system has been pretty hazy, and I think that my hyper divergent FE has made me kind of subservient to what those around me think, and I have had plenty of ideas of my own, but I haven't really been able to solidify them. After having a lot of time to read and think about things on my own, I've come to a new set of beliefs, which has been really good. I've also been playing a lot more guitar, and I've been writing my own songs, which has been a very good creative outlet. Been taking more walks outside by myself in isolated areas. And I've been learning chess, and really like mastering chess, which is very different from just like playing it for fun. I can't say I'm very good yet, but it's a really engaging experience. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Priscilla. I'm an INTJ. And how has the quarantine impacted my life? Well, I've been spending a lot more time at home and been enjoying the weather, which right now is April. We got snow on the ground. How about that? And, you know, just stay safe. We'll get through this.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. My type code is INFJ. I am from New York, United States. My life prior to the pandemic was attending university and going to work and the occasional hangout with my friends. Then the pandemic hit and the governor gave us stay-at-home orders, and we have been sheltering in place for over a month now. I was forced out of my employment. My classes have switched to distance learning, so I'm now taking my classes online. And just recently, I lost my grandfather to COVID-19. It has been difficult, to say the least, and to create some sort of normalcy in all of this. I have developed a daily routine. It is very specific. I have my hours planned, so I have an hour dedicated to studying, I have an hour dedicated to recreational time, I have an hour dedicated to meditation, I even have my times planned when I'm having my meals. I feel as though having this routine in place could give me some sort of sanity. I also do not watch the news. I only watch when the governor is giving his daily briefings, and then I turn it off because I cannot handle that much negative news if I'm going to stay sane. I hope all is well on your end, Harry. I think this project is an excellent idea, and I look forward to seeing the results of this project. Stay safe.
Where do I start? I'll start with this. Yeah, my name's Lee. I'd come into the bracket of ENTP. The thing with this whole quarantine, and it took a little while to kind of realise exactly how I was feeling. One of the key things with me, and it is true, it's kind of anticipating and feeling my way into someone to kind of get what they're all about, and I'm trying to pick up on things before they even speak. That, I think, has been the biggest, hardest hitting element of me being here. Obviously mainly at home. I'm doing quite a bit of exercise as and when I can, when my bike works, should I say. Playing quite a lot of music. It's the whole human element, I think, more than anything. Yeah, that kind of contact side of it, that has been, took a little bit to get my head round. But you know, kind of getting there, I'm getting used to it. I'm going to have to learn how to hug people from 6 feet away, like a telepathic thing, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of my angle anyway. And I hope everyone's staying well and safe. Bye for now.
You've taught me a lot about personality types. I enjoy the preparation you take. It's very sincere. I must admit that even though I do identify as an INFJ, I do try to catch myself not overindulging in it. But because you speak of other types and the topics that go on in your community, I do watch you, and I find you to be a soothing presence, but I get it. It's not about that. Before the quarantine, I was running myself really hard. And I didn't realize that until I started understanding the effects of my environment before the quarantine. There are a lot of things that I did to energetically cleanse from my life. I find that I'm not doing that as much because there's nothing or no one that I'm around that I have to cleanse myself of. I am much more willing to write more, put myself out there more. But that was just wheels in motion way before this. So thanks for this opportunity to connect with you.
Hi, my name is Sarah, but I also go by Seneca Black. My type code is INTJ, and I am a writer, at least as a hobby, would like to make it into a career. As far as how the pandemic has affected my life, well, there's the obvious financial concerns, since I usually work part-time, and those part-time hours have been cut even further. But the upside of that is that I have a lot more time, even more than I had before, to write. But instead of being lazy and making excuses, I find I'm actually being more creative, and even started uploading to YouTube. So I finally actually started doing more research and learning as well. In addition to, I feel like the pandemic has made me become a little bit more extroverted, maybe not in an obvious way, but I noticed that I have been taking advantage of messaging friends a lot more often, expressing more kind of emotional concerns that I wouldn't normally express. Not that, at least not in person or in message. Usually I'm more do that through writing, but I notice now that I'm being a lot more forthright with it, a little bit more direct, and I think also a little bit more understanding of people's fears during this time and their concerns, where normally I think I would be a lot more critical. So yeah.
Thank you so much to everyone who shared their videos with us. Honestly, talking to a camera like this, at least for me, it never really gets easy. It always feels a bit strange and artificial. And also just putting yourself out there in such a way to be seen by hundreds or even thousands of people, it takes a lot of courage, so thank you. And this brings us to the second half of this video. First of all, I'm going to read the various messages I've received in response to this project. But it goes without saying, for the sake of privacy, I am going to be keeping the email addresses and full names of the people who submitted the messages hidden. So this one's from Jamie. Hi Harry, I appreciate the interesting project. It's a great idea. I have a horror of video, so I'm sorry it's just an email. That's perfectly understandable. I think I'm an INFJ. I'm a strange mix of feelings right now, like everyone else I guess. I'm sinking into very comfortable introversion, but I can feel it not being good for my mental health at the same time. Like eating a whole box of Twinkies as comfort food and knowing the stomach ache is coming. Also the emotional weight of our worldwide grief and my personal worries hit me when I least expected. But there's a silver lining, like new ideas, time to think, and appreciation for what we have. I hope the things we can learn from this can be used to improve systems that weren't working. I'll admit I haven't been very productive. I've been spacing out to video games and music more than feeding my brain or organising my messy house. I'm trying not to feel guilty about that though. Sometimes just coping takes all of your energy. I hope you're doing well. Thanks Jamie, same to you. Thank you for continuing to upload. It helps things feel a bit more normal. And yeah, while I have made videos recently presenting a kind of silver lining to a quarantine whereby the cognitive stack can actually do things it wouldn't ordinarily be able to do, such as like being productive or grounded in the concrete in the case of a highly introverted individual, sometimes coping itself does take all of your energy, and some people, either psychologically or otherwise, will be hit more by this pandemic than others. So we have now an individual going by the alias of Opal Knight. Let's start reading this out. Hello. I'm a 42-year-old INFJ, married, mother of 3, my youngest being 3 months and my older 2 both being in early elementary grades. I'm pleasantly enjoying having my family safely enclosed within our home, and I feel more at ease with my own life and being more included in my children's learning. That's definitely an upside. I have been all but a social recluse to the rest of the world for some 15 years, so I actually feel more engaged and more sociable than I have been towards both my immediate family and also the family outside of our abode. I'm living in almost a surreal pocket during this time, as if the rest of reality's fallen away, and I'm left in a perfect dream world bubble. Some are out there, other bubbles now exist, with other families or single people, all floating separate and untouchable, and yet the same. Nice analogy. In a way, I feel closer to the rest of society and sharing the separation experience. But I'm acutely aware of my own selfishness and enjoying the ease of my life when so many others are troubled with uncertainty, isolated, sick, grieving, or out of work. Yet, in the back of my mind pervades an eerie sense of disquiet. The foundations that our societies are based upon are in a state of upheaval, like fortresses built on sinkhole-laden ground. And when this pandemic comes to a close, what walls will remain intact? What infrastructures will have crumbled, and what cracks will weaken our current way of living? That's another interesting point. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the newfound feasibility of a potential universal living wage, for example. Other people are realising that they could have actually worked from home all along. Other corporations are realising this. Perhaps certain corporations will be able to save money by further developing a work from home scheme whenever it is possible. And obviously, here in the UK, for example, a lot of people, many people have lost faith in their own government. And the final paragraph of the message reads, I'm not entirely certain that the nature of my cognition has changed through all of this. Certainly the questions and even the projection I see of society's future has been altered. Me too. But the raw data aside, I don't think my own cognitive approach to facing my day-to-day future or envisioning the direction of the world as a whole has altered. I'm ever optimistic that the world will rally together and come out stronger. We will learn, we will adapt, and we will grow. Changes were always inevitable in our society's futures anyway, another good point. While change may be hard to swallow, it does not necessitate that those changes will be for the worse. Thank you, Opal Knight. That was a really insightful and philosophical message, and I personally really enjoyed reading it, and actually I think many of our thoughts are one and the same on this matter. And I wish the very best for you and your family. So this next message is from Renee. Tell me if I've pronounced that correctly. Hi, my name is Renee and I'm 26 years old. The online test at 16personalities.com showed me a few times INFP-T. Okay, you might be an INFP. I mean, there's a 50% chance I'd say that you are an INFP. And from what I've read of this message, I think it's quite likely, so that's good. Anyway, I'll stop being pedantic. I took the test a few months before the quarantine. Parentheses, I hadn't time to read your book yet, sorry, so I don't presume to talk about cognitive functions. No worries at all, and if you do get around to reading the book, tell me what you think of it. I hope you enjoy it. There's headings in this one, excellent. How has the pandemic affected my life? I'm from Italy, so the quarantine started for me on March 3rd. In the beginning, I could work from home. The first 2 weeks full time, and the next 2 weeks half time, and the remaining time until now I haven't worked at all. Well, in that case, I hope you're doing okay financially. I spent the whole quarantine time in my parents' house together with my mother, who's an ESTP, and my younger sister, who is an ENFP. So, next heading. How do you feel your cognition has changed as a result? Oh, I should mention that these questions here are, should I say, the suggested questions I put in the original video, and I really do appreciate the people who have tried to answer the cognitive element, because it is really difficult to, especially absent a kind of thorough, easily vocalized understanding of the cognitive functions, to convey this kind of information. So, I'm a self-taught programmer working as an employee, and usually I follow the same routine from day to day. At work, I mostly don't realise anything around me because I'm too focused on my work. Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm constantly thinking about technical problems, how everything fits together, all possible solutions, and finding the best way of doing things as efficiently as possible. And all that for thank you afterward. At the beginning of the quarantine, I had this constant fear of losing reality because of too much thinking. Then my mother and sister had this fight over days, and it was horrible crossing their ways. Yeah, that's actually been quite prevalent, I've heard. I mean, thankfully, I myself have escaped it. Many of the people I know have escaped it, as far as I know, but being in that kind of enclosed environment with other people, no matter how well you get on, no matter how great your relationship is, just being in the same space with each other, especially before the initial adaptation has taken place, it can dramatically increase the chance of various fights. As a result, I allowed myself to lose reality as I did in my childhood, interesting. And I started, parentheses, more than normal, revisiting memories, having virtual talks to people I know, and creating all these scenes in my head. Sounds like you have a pretty intense imagination like I do. This all found its high as I wrote a love letter to a girl I know. Sadly, I could have guessed her response. Then I wrote some text trying to describe the feeling her response gave me. I called it Die Antwort. Tell me if I pronounced that correctly. German for the response. Normally, I only write code, not literary texts, fair enough. Well, you've done quite well here. Later, I stabilised more and more, and also redefined my goals, and now I believe my normal workday was not healthy. That's fascinating. So you feel like this quarantine, even though it's been somewhat negative as far as I can tell, has actually affected you in a kind of positive way, whereby you can look back on how you were before the quarantine, and actually, from this perspective, now that that habit has been completely disrupted, now that that routine has been disrupted, you can suddenly, on a kind of vista, see how certain elements of it at least weren't as healthy as you initially thought they were. Fascinating. I think the quarantine made me more INFP-like, parentheses, as far as I can say that. You know, I do appreciate when people who have just taken an online test acknowledge the fact that just because they got a result, it doesn't mean they are that type. I mean, as far as I can tell, Renee, you might very well be an INFP. I mean, it's not unusual in the slightest bit. In fact, I'd even say it's quite common for INFPs, owing to their kind of analytical ability and technical expertise, to go into that kind of sector. And nothing you've said here is in any way non-INFP-like. Thank you for reading. I hope you can use this for your project. Best regards, Renee. And again, I really hope I pronounced that correctly. And again, thank you so much for sharing. I'm genuinely enjoying so far the various different perspectives and insights we're getting in this project. So, next one. And so now we have an individual who wanted to remain completely anonymous, so let's get on to their message now. Single 31-year-old ENTP here. I've been all alone in my apartment for 6 weeks now. Parentheses, I'm from France. Fortunately, my work involves meeting people, doing specific consulting, coaching, and following projects, etc. Even if it is by phone or virtual means during this period, this cannot be counted as a real person-to-person interaction. One could say phone, video meetings or so can make the trick, but hell, it's not. Yeah, I actually agree. I mean, some people will adapt to the virtual mediums of communication easier, but if you're living by yourself and the only source of interaction you have are virtual mediums, then yeah, my heart goes out to you. That can be very difficult to cope with. The thing is, after the first 2 weeks, I felt lost and drained. I tried launching many side projects involving other people, good idea, and it quite helped me for a while. But since last week, I feel even more deeply drained. Interesting. Physically, or in reality, no one to share with, no one to take care of, no one to interrupt me, no one to touch. My universe revolves around my apartment and my only mind. And my side projects cannot help me gain energy anymore. It can seem quite paradoxical, but the more time goes on, the more my social anxiety strengthens. I doubt about myself, who I am, my worth, everything, and I can't really get out of my mind. And yeah, for so many ENTPs, yeah, you can affect people over various social mediums, but really extrovert intuition, extrovert feeling, it takes in the entire emotional atmosphere. As I've said in the previous video, for many ENTPs, the virtual is just not enough. So obviously I wish you the very best in the situation, and for all of our sakes, I hope it ends sooner rather than later. All excitement-free tasks are left lying around for more than a month now, and I jump on little energy bumps to make the minimal daily work. I just asked my boss to take some holidays just to hibernate like a dry tardigrade, cool simile, waiting for better times. Not fun at all. I hope I'll get back some humour once it'll be over too. Yeah, that sounds like an incredibly tough situation, and hopefully this will just be a passing storm. So this next message is from one of the channel's more active commenters, Claire. Hey Claire, always good to hear from you. Okay, so after a few days thought, I won't be submitting a video, totally fine, but I still find it such a fun idea to look for patterns that I'd like to bring into a contribution, so here it is. I'm not absolutely certain about my type, and maybe I never will. I'll just say that INFP seems to be what fits me best. And from our interactions as well, I'd say that's quite likely. My life is looking quite different at the moment. I'm a physics and chemistry teacher in a middle school, so I've been e-teaching since all schools have been closed in France. I have a few friends who are doing the same. I also have 2 young daughters, therefore I've also been homeschooling. Sounds like a lot of work. My INTP husband works from home, so not much change for him, nice. Since we are lucky enough to own a house with a garden, also nice. The lockdown isn't too hard on us. I consider this positive, being able to spend more family time, that's great. On the other hand, my anxiety levels have rocketed. I typically need lots of alone time, parentheses, to think, to do art, to gather ideas from YouTube, from books, etc. It's funny because some people are feeling deprived of human contact while I'm experiencing the opposite. I miss being able to daydream in my own little bubble. Of course, the pandemic itself makes me very anxious as well, and the result for me is an increased inability to focus. If I try to read, play music, write, my mind wanders to dark places almost immediately. Interesting. So my coping strategy is to be unusually physically active. Yeah, I can resonate with this. Cooking, gardening, building stone walls, okay, maybe not that. Reorganising stuff in my home. Anything that involves movement. I'll finish by saying there's a duality in my feelings towards the situation. On a macroscopic scale, I believe it forces humanity to ask some tough and important questions as to where we, globally, have been heading, agreed. But on a microscopic level, the individual tragedies that occur make me sick to my stomach. That's a very good point. I do believe macroscopically in, more abstract terms, such as politics and society, I do believe the change could be very positive, but it doesn't change the fact that there's been a countless amount of tragedies that has occurred across the globe. As always, thanks for the videos. I'm staying tuned, appreciate that, even if not able to interact as much lately. Take care, stay safe. Claire. Thank you, Claire, another incredible contribution. So now let's get on to the YouTube comments under the video. I'm just going to be using people's aliases here. So this alias is AS. Type code INFP, again, as far as I know. Thank you for saying that. How the pandemic has affected my life. I work from home mainly anyhow. A great deal of my hobbies, such as art, music and social media, are home-based, and a lot of my socialising is online normally. So basically I was born to do this. But strangely, I live in one of those few countries, Sweden, that has not been on lockdown, at least not more than voluntarily, with a few exceptions. So I find myself in an odd position of being basically free to do as I want, while, of course, social distancing. But making the decision on the 12th of March, the day after COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, to bunker down in my flat. It just felt safer that way. For me and anyone who I might come into contact with. Really good of you. Initially I went for walks outside, but the lack of care regarding social distancing here made me very uncomfortable, and I stopped going out for about a week into self-isolation. So I've been in full hermit mode for a month now, and get sun on the balcony and exercise on my stationary bike and yoga mat. I mean, I'm sure there's a healthy balance here. If you're walking maybe once a day, every 2 days, and you pick a route whereby there's no one passing you, for example, I don't know if that's possible or not, but definitely try to take care of yourself too. How I have changed. I'm a lot more productive in terms of my hobbies, and in some ways more organised, interesting. At least where any dealings with the outside world are concerned. The usual chaos prevails in my flat, oh dear. I'm also doing a lot more cooking and self-care activities such as yoga and breathwork every day as a must. Yeah, same for me. Before the pandemic, I was a very active consumer of cultural life in my town, but find that I can meet my needs online too. I try to limit my news exposure to reading online newspapers twice a day, so that doesn't get too overwhelming. To be honest, I haven't watched TV for years now anyway. I also limit my social media intake for the same reason. On the whole, I think I've adapted well and generally feel calm inside my bubble. But I've struggled with the emotional dissonance of some friends not taking the situation as seriously as I have. On the one hand, I hate preaching, but on the other, they're risking people's lives, so I continue to tell people how I'm living in the hope of nudging them into taking similar steps where possible. I mean, everybody's different, everybody needs to get out to get sunlight, for example, but I definitely 100% agree with the sentiment of your message. Okay, this next message is from Desert INTJ. I hate to say it, but I'm enjoying this and I'm going to be a little sad when it ends. Very little changed in my day-to-day. Fascinating how some people have been affected so differently. I switched from going to the office to WFH, this is a software engineer. I see that as a plus with not having to commute or the distraction of an open office. Outside of work, it's pretty much the same. I'm working on hobbies and projects at home like I normally do. Life is rolling along pretty much normally for me. In addition, there have been some positives. If I have to go out for groceries, there is less traffic and people in the store. Those that are there stay away and out of my way. I haven't had to make up excuses for not doing work functions and the like. Also, watching the data streams for the number of cases, death, etc. and predicting the trends has been fascinating. I mean, that might sound a bit cold for many people watching this video, but to be honest, we do need to be doing this. We need people to be looking at the trends and constantly analysing the various statistics. Thank you, Desert INTJ. So, next comment. This is from Era 880. Now that I think of it, maybe I've become more productive. I'm actually kind of excited, and I don't want this to sound wrong about the pandemic. People are forced to be with themselves more now. There are fears and there are emotions. More time to focus inwardly and more time to reflect and see what is really important in life. Finally, the world gets a time out from all the madness and so-called everyday life. That's a really good point. I think introverts have been alright with the situation, extroverts not as much, which is understandable. So I'm excited to see how this affects our culture and society and systems. Maybe we'll find some new ways of doing things or perhaps new inventions because of what the circumstances reveal to us. It's a time of change for sure. And yeah, I completely agree. Many people would have benefited from the opportunity for objectivity that this quarantine has presented. Okay, this next comment's by Hannah A. Hassan. ENTP here. The good thing about quarantine is that I get to spend time with my family. Also, I get in touch with a few of my old friends again. That's cool. Emotionally, I feel kind of low. Perfectly understandable. I try making the best of my time, learning new things, reading more, spending time with family and friends, and taking care of my health. Okay, it sounds like a difficult situation, but you seem to be dealing with it very well. So this next comment is by a personal friend of mine in real life. He's a great pianist, by the way. I definitely recommend you check him out. As an INFJ/INFP, I mean, I think he's an INFJ, but we'll see. The first 3 weeks were great. Recorded up to 9 hours of music, wow. Walked loads, discovered parts of my city I never knew existed, read promiscuously, drank and ate well, enjoyed the sun, kept in touch with friends and family via the expediently arm's length media of video calls, indeed. But now the anxiety and guilt about such feckless dulce vita existence kick in. I don't even know what that means, somebody tell me. Quarantine is not a benching from the gods, it is the best human response possible to a very dangerous reality that affects everyone. Zigzagging across suburban B-roads to avoid coughing joggers, donning face masks to acquire essentials, toilet paper and all that, developing strategies to alleviate anxiety, forcing by sheer willpower to postpone the first drink until the sun is over the autumn, not thinking straight but still waking every morning, knowing that each new day will yield new terror and joy, and also acknowledging that everyone is in the same boat. Yes, that annoying neighbour who pumps out techno at 2 AM every morning is actually a decent human being, and that they do that to alleviate stress according to their own type. I hope it's cultivated my empathy. It certainly sounds like it. That's an incredibly reasonable perspective, although I don't think there's ever an excuse for pumping out techno at 2 AM in the morning when you have a flatmate or neighbour, for example. Paul goes on, and the bird song, every day feels like a Sunday, the crystalline alpine air is magical. I feel like I'm turning into a Labrador. Every day revolves around the 3 rituals of long walks, food and sleep. At least you're taking care of yourself. Binge watching the original series of Survivors has also proven to be therapeutic. And I'll let you read a few more of those comments below. Anyway, yeah, cool guy. I like him. Robert Mitchell says, as an ENTP Enneagram 5 microbiologist, the outbreak has been a fascinating exercise in watching a human train crash. Such is life. Again, I mean, it sounds cold, probably accompanied with a dry sense of humour, but the fact is people do also need to be detaching on some level in order to ascertain what's actually going on, and indeed what strategies are best from a more macroscopic perspective to implement. Okay, next comment. Stupid guy writes, not confident in my type, though ENFP is possible. I need interaction to energise afresh, and so that has been different. Not worse. Tech is actually pretty useful, just different. Again, quite a even-handed perspective. I've also better developed my FI, some with this downtime that I don't necessarily have to feel selfish about, and indeed, nor should you. Okay, Susanna A writes, another good commenter on the channel, how about nothing? As INTJ, I don't have that much difference because I'm a college student and the only difference I have is taking care more of my surroundings. Parentheses, starting paying attention to extrovert sensing, for example. Cleaning my house, cleaning my desk and checking my computer's file and trash, those junk files, and doing my college assignments online, that's all. The pandemic doesn't even surprise me a bit. I already predicted that something bad will happen, like many have, and that the world is going to end sooner or later anyway, which, I don't know, that's a bit more of a rare perspective, but let's go with that. I'm waiting for it to happen as I'm affirmative for conspiracies and my own intuition. Interesting. So, quite a cynical perspective from Susanna there, but a lot of the things she says are quite reasonable. It's interesting that the quarantine hasn't, again, with many people, affected you in a negative way from what I can tell. But regardless, I hope you take care of yourself. Okay, T Sav says, I tested as INFJ, I think I'm doing fine. I do work from home. I'm one of the lucky ones in our company to be chosen for the skeletal workforce. This means I will have a steady source of income until the lockdown is over. For this I'm thankful, but I still have my worries. I worry that our government will lie to us about the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths. I worry that the numbers will be manipulated so people can go back to work for the economy. COVID-19 cases may have a lot of recoveries, but it depends if a person gets treatment. All of our hospitals are full and not admitting new patients. That's a really terrible situation. I feel that if ever the lockdown is lifted too early and a company that I work for pressures me to report to work at our workplace, I will have to quit my job. Healthy skepticism as far as I can tell here. But for all of our sakes and for the sake of the people in your respective country, I hope your fears are groundless. And that all brings us up to date with the project, so thank you so much for everyone who submitted their messages and videos. And in the instance that this project will continue on some level, I will limit further submissions to just video only. Not in any way, shape or form because the messages were in any way inferior to the videos, but rather in the hopes that at some point in the future we may actually have enough video footage to compile together to have a single video-only documentary. And so while I do encourage people to reach out, and if I have the time I do try and get back, just want to give you a heads up that if this project continues any further, it'll only be the video segments, including the videos used in this video here, that will make the final cut. So I've personally found this very fulfilling. It's taken some time, but honestly it's just been a joy to touch base with all of you. And it's clear that some people have been affected by this radically different to other people. So I hope you all enjoyed that video, and definitely let me know if you think this project should continue any further and whether or not other channels, including my own, should jump into this particular project. So thank you so much to everyone who watched this video, especially if you made it this far. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and maybe even consider sharing it with more people for it to reach as many people as it possibly can. If you haven't already done so and you'd like to see more content from me, make sure to click that subscribe button down below with the bell icon next to it. That way you can stay notified of future content. I upload 2 videos every week, so I'll be back in a few days' time. For now, take care of yourself.